we're back. Welcome back to the Weekly Roundup, place where we unpack what's been going on in the yoga and wellness world and what we've been coaching our clients through. I'm Carol. I'm here with Terry, little skeleton crew, but we still have a lot to
Small
talk
but
about.
mighty.
Exactly, small but mighty. Before we started recording, one of the topics that came up was I had a meeting with a client this week, and it came to light that one of the systems they had put in place as a task management tool was sort of rejected by one of their managers. And we talked about it. I thought it was a really interesting thing to talk about here on the Roundup, because what we uncovered was this particular manager thought that, well, they had daily tasks, right? And in Asana or in their task management system, the owner had set up like every single daily task to be repeated every single day. And I think there's a whole bunch for this manager to do. And the manager was rejecting using the system because it was just easier for them to have their piece of paper and just go through and do it how they have always done it. And and we also had an issue where something had not been completed that was on the list. So the manager system wasn't quite working properly. She wasn't really down with using the new system. And, what we kind of uncovered was, does the system in this form actually work? Is it reasonable to have this manager check off the 50 things that they need to do every single day? So we talked about the potential of simplifying it and maybe making one main daily list of tasks and having all the subtasks with the reminders, just because when you have that much to do every single day, it is easy to forget. And obviously something did get dropped, and that's why we were having this discussion. So instead of like checking off every single thing, they would just have to check off one thing in the task list to say, yep, the daily tasks are completed. So I guess it begs the question, like, when you have a system, is it the correct one? Is it reasonable? Is it simple enough to use, but with enough detail that you can have some accountability? And so that was the starting point of our
Yeah.
discussion today.
And one of my clients, I don't think it was her phrase. Actually, I think there's a book written about, there's a business book for just about anything, but it's simple scales, complex fails. And Carol and I were also talking, and Carol's and our personalities are very different. Carol's much more detail oriented and the technical side, whereas I'm like, big picture, fun. And I was just to say, give me the program, I'll sell it. I don't want to write the program. I don't want the details of the program. I don't care how it came to be. You just give it to me package, tell me what I need to do, and I'll go sell it for you. Right. So I tended, when I was a manager, it's just like I would make things almost too simple with not enough detail. And then Carol probably at the polar opposite would almost be too much. So again, finding that middle balance, what giving enough detail for people to do their job, but making it simple enough, not so complex that people get frustrated because it's like, oh my God, I can do this so much faster. Why do I have to do all this stuff? And so that's where looking at your systems is it's part art and part science, right? You have to find, I think, that balance so that everybody feels empowered to do their task, but not overwhelmed by, we don't want the task management system to be overwhelming people, because that's
Right.
the exact opposite of what we want with a task management system, is we want it so that everybody can use it. And then I hear that a lot too. Well, I like to do it my way. Well, the challenge with that is then you have four people doing things four different ways.
That, and in this case, this manager is going to be out for some time. How does the person who's stepping in know what to do? Because now it's just in their brain or on their piece of paper that
On
they
their piece of
follow.
paper.
Like
Yeah.
so that is an issue. And going a little bit further too, we found when we tried to do an electronic checklist for our teachers. it was working really well for our front desk staff. But when we tried it for our teachers, it just didn't land. So you adjust, like
Yeah.
we adjusted and had like a different system that still had accountability, still had reminders, but it was more like just a piece of laminated sheet where it's like, okay, remember to do these things before, these things after, and so we had to, just go with the flow and see what worked, try it. And that the electronic system didn't work for the teachers, but we found something that did work. So I think that's so important too.
Yeah, and I 100%. And a lot of clients, I've same thing, very similar. Like a task management, like an Asana or whatever you use, works great for front desk. Same thing with the teachers, not so great. So exactly, a lot of clients, it's like you said, Carol, a laminated checklist. Here are your new clients. Here are the thing. Well, here's your, what you need to do before, during the checklist, after class, whatever it is, so they can just refer to it. It's there for them. And then also the front desk would prep uh, their connection list, right? Here's the people that are new. Here's people who are new to you. All of that stuff. I did a post about that in our private in the Artha community a while back, is about creating this connection list for the teachers. So yeah, again, finding that system that fits the job.
Yeah, because we had actually a different system for our cleaning crew.
Yeah,
Like they all three different roles had different checklist systems
yeah, and that's the
because
way
it
it should
didn't
be.
fit. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
it,
yeah.
it's not a one size fits all system.
Mhm.
And one
Well,
system I'm going to throw out there that I coach clients through, and a lot of them haven't, a lot, if you're listening to this, maybe have not thought of this, is there's certain things, systems, that things you do as the owner that nobody else does. And oftentimes, depending on the size of your organization, oftentimes that revolve around finances, whether it's payroll, paying thing, whatever it is. In that case, you as the owner need to have a system so that if something were to happen to you, or if you wanted to, let's say, go on a 3-week vacation and not have to worry about doing, like, I always had to do payroll.
I know,
And like,
same.
so there are
Yeah.
plenty of times when I'm like, thank God for QuickBooks and the app. I'm doing payroll on my phone basically, which is not ideal. You should be able to take a vacation. So in that case, having someone, a trusted person, maybe they're not even within your team, that they have access and know how to do certain things in case that if you are on vacation, or God forbid you're in the hospital,
Or you're abducted by
or
aliens,
you're
which is
abducted by aliens. Yes, you're abducted by aliens. It's like,
I love
how
you brought that up. You
yeah.
coined that one, so I
Yeah,
love
the
that.
alien abduction manual. It's like, if my father used to say, make it so that if you left if you got hit by a bus, your business would still keep going. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a kind of a morbid
a
thought,
bit
but that's
morbid.
why I like
Yeah,
the alien abduction manual better. But that's the truth of it.
yeah.
The business should be able to, actually, this just made me think there's this company, it's called a knock box, NOK. And it's
Oh,
a
I know
company,
what this is.
next
Yeah,
of kin.
yes.
It's a
The
Knox
knockbox.
box, and it's like they've got a whole thing on it, and I get their new, but it's basically a place where if something were to happen to you, and this is on an individual basis, but you could do the same thing for your business, that you were like, okay, hey, Carol, my knock box is in this closet, and in that box is everything you need to, if in the event of an emergency or I'm abducted by aliens. It has the passwords, it has all the information that someone needs to get into your information. Have the same thing for your business. Have a business knockbox.
Yeah,
And someone has that. Maybe it's your CPA, maybe it's your bestie, but whoever it is like they have it. In the event of emergency or whatever, they know what to do.
yeah.
And having been through with both my parents passing, I can tell you one of the last best gifts you can give your family is having all of that stuff ready for them.
100%.
Right. And I
That's why
know
I'm
Carol,
familiar with this.
yes.
My mom has the knockbox.
Yeah.
My father, who passed away a few years ago, did not.
And let's just say it has not been an
Yeah.
easy journey for Carol and her sister.
No.
So I mean, God, this kind of took an interesting turn, but this is the reality of the
Yeah.
situation. When you think about your business, you need to think about you need to have these things in place. And like just a simple thing, what happens to the business if you should die?
Mm.
Who's in charge? What happens? Do you want it sold? Do you want it this? Do you want it that? I mean, that's having that plan in place is equally as important as everything else in your organization.
It's really interesting that a lot of, I mean, I had a business partner and we
Right.
had a very general like agreement. And at some point we got very much more clear about
Yeah.
that and had like, the lawyers draw up this and like that and what happens if, I mean, every scenario. But it was actually a few years into the business. It wasn't straight out of the gate.
Right.
So and I think a lot of people just ignore that. They're not, thinking ahead, but it can get super messy if you don't have those things
Yeah.
in place.
Even and especially if you have a business partner and you
Mm,
don't have that in place.
yeah,
And then you have the air. And then actually, my father, when he and his business partner started their business back in what, 1980, whenever it was, they had a very, very detailed one, mostly because they thought my dad would go first, because my dad had he had at age 42, he had his first coronary bypass surgery. So,
okay,
and very specific because both of them had kids that worked in the
mhm,
business. His original
yeah,
partner had a couple of kids that worked in the business, one of which was a step kid. And then my dad had two of his kids. And so they wanted to make it very, very clear what happened if one of the others should die, what would happen to the business. And actually, ironically, it was his partner that passed away, brain aneurysm. Nope,
oh,
just don't know when
yeah,
those are going to come. And again, thank goodness they had done that, because if they hadn't, it would have been a cluster
mm,
between the wife, the ex-wife, the kids, all of that stuff. Anyway,
yeah. Well,
well,
that
it's
took a
got
different
who knew talking about
turn.
settings as systems. But again, this is what happens on the weekly roundup. We just don't know where the conversation is going to go. And again, these are things we speak from experience, right? These are the things that happen with businesses. You hear about it, and it's really sad sometimes.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
it's just for coming up with a system. But well, let's kind of go back, Carol, to where what you were talking about is, let's say you do have a great system and you have done everything and it's humming along, and then you have someone that's like, no, I don't want to do it that way.
Well, I think that might be a hiring problem or culture fit issue. Like in my mind, it's so funny. We work with clients all the time with owners of businesses that encounter this, and it's to me it's shocking because I don't know if it's my personality and people don't like push back to me some like as a leader.
Right,
I don't remember if I had that, it was you know what, they probably didn't last very long because I'm steering the ship here. I want
right.
this done like that. And so like to allow someone to say, no, like, oh, it's time to say goodbye. I don't know. I
Yeah,
can't really, my brain can't really I can't wrap my head around
and you're
that.
right. It does. I think a lot of it does start with hiring. It really does start with hiring. And we've talked a lot about this. Is like, is when you I mean, with your system, your business, people only fail to the level of your system. So if there is a problem in the business, we've talked a lot about this lately too. Is it a systems problem? Is it really is it the purple? Is it a problem with the people, or is it a problem with the system?
Mhm.
So if the system's broken, we need to fix the system. And then if, yep, okay, we've got this going. Now it's easier to identify where are the problems. And I just recently happened with a client with a hire. And I was like, I said to the owner, I said, well, is this a training problem or is this a hiring problem? Because she made it through the interviews, through your hiring process. And now she's 3 weeks in and there's issues. I said, is it? And it kind of came back that it was a little bit of both.
Mm,
It was a little bit both hiring and training. And one of the things I love, I'd seen in a video about a professional HR person. And I think I love this. If I, excuse me, if I ever owned a business, I would definitely incorporate this into my hiring process. Is in the interview, obviously talking about the job and how they want it, blah, blah, blah. And then this interviewer said this, she was like, okay, this is all great. Now I want to tell you about the not so great parts of this job.
Yeah.
And I think I was like, it really kind of like, wow, that makes sense. So, like, again, if you're hiring for, let's say, the front desk, and the front desk has to do some light cleaning, it said, one of the things about one of the not so nice parts of this job is there might be from time to time, you might have to clean up a toilet that somebody has vomited all over or had an accident, right?
We were totally upfront with that as
Yeah.
well in the hiring process.
It's
Like,
like,
it's really rare,
it's
but I
very
got to tell
rare.
you, that's going to fall on you.
If there could be a time where you're going to have the toilets clogged, and before we call the plumber, you're going to try to unclog it, kind of thing.
Are you comfortable with
Are you
that?
comfortable with that? There might come a time when, and just lay it out for people so that they understand. And like in this one situation, it was the person who was hired to do the scheduling, because they have two locations, a lot of teachers, a lot of front desk. And one of the things that came out with a recent hire, and when I asked this question, it was like mic drop. And the question was, once the woman got into the job, she resented the fact that people were contacting her outside her hours.
Oh,
And what they failed to tell her is that failed to emphasize or whatever, there was a failure in their system because the expectation is that as the scheduler, if there's a last minute sub or a last minute emergency, the teacher wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning and can't make it, is that you're the first call.
yeah, that should have been communicated. That's definitely, I think, a
Yeah.
hiring,
And that was like, and then they, like I said, that's where the mic drop happened. And they're like,
Mhm.
oh,
Yeah.
right. It's like, oh, you're going to be doing the scheduling. Here are your hours. But it's like, yeah, here are your hours. But also, there's maybe times, and with an organization with two studios and like almost 50 teachers, it actually happens more frequently than a smaller studio with maybe 10 teachers
Hmm.
when you have almost 100 classes a week on the schedule. Like, so
Yeah.
again, it's making sure that the system is there. But then what do you do with the pushback?
I mean, I think I would probably try to employ the 131 solution, problem solving. So this is something that I wish I had known as an owner, back in the day, because I am definitely the person that, like, if there's a problem, I'll solve it. Like, I think I can figure it out. But when you have 100 different fires to put out or 100 different problems to solve, that weighs on you a lot. So giving this, if you haven't heard of the 131 problem solution framework, basically it's like you empower your team member, whoever that is, to bring you the problem. Okay, state the problem. That's one. Give me the three solutions that you've figured out. Like, what are three possible solutions to this problem? And then tell me the one that you think is the best one. What is the correct direction to go in? And so that one maybe, solves it. Like, you've empowered them to actually make a decision that would help the have a solution for everyone. Two, it could be like, is this really a problem?
Yeah, I was
Like,
just going to say, yeah,
that's the other, like, a lot of times it's a case of like, I just needed to vent about something, and like that's a different time, place, energy, perhaps. But in either case, like, then it's not all on you to figure out what's the best thing to do. And if you're not working as the owner, if you're not working in that role anymore, maybe it's been a long time, they would have maybe even better perspective on how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So that gives them, it empowers them as a team member and possibly comes up with an even better solution than you could as the owner.
And it's definitely, it's a way to level up your team,
Hmm.
especially if you're wanting to look for people that can maybe take on more of a leadership or management role. And the other thing about that, in addition to what you said about the problem, oftentimes what can happen is by defining the problem, they realize, oh, that is not really, that's not the problem. This is actually the problem. So when they define the problem and start looking for solutions, there can be times where, like, you know what, this isn't a problem. It's actually two steps before that's the problem. We need to fix this thing. It's kind of like finding bug in code,
Hmm.
right? It's like, okay, it's broken here, but actually it's three steps before that where that's where it starts to fail, kind of thing. So that again, that 3131 is a great tool, even to use for yourself too. It's like if you're stuck on something, okay, define the problem, what, and then picking it. And sometimes just that process of defining it and figuring out solutions can empower you, particularly if you're stressed about something, right? And then the other thing that comes with the pushback too is how you're communicating to your team and if understanding the why behind something, right?
Totally.
Because it's like if I still remember, hashtag Terry is dad because I said so, and that's the only reason you need. And there are some times where that still legitimately is the case. Or it's like, trust me, I will tell you why we have to, but right now we have to do it this way. And I will bring you up to speed as to why. I mean, that could be in an emergency, but which we don't really, I think, encounter too much in a fitness business. But I've been watching way too much Grey's Anatomy lately, so it's always about the ER and this and that. So anyway, it's like, oh, I forgot where I was going with that. The problem. Oh, and
Communicating.
getting clarity on the why, getting clarity on the why. And if that is your why, and then this is a phrase we were using at the summit a lot last year was, if this is this the hill you're going to die on?
Mhm.
If this is the hill you're going to die on, and then you've communicated that to the team, and then there's someone who is not there, that's when you may have to separate,
Yeah.
right? It's
Well,
like,
then it could be a conversation like, okay, I've communicated the why, we've problem solved on this, you're still resisting. Is there a misalignment here with
yeah,
our culture, values, and that kind of thing? And it might be very clear. I've had business owners that go to the person. It's like, look, you can lean on your core values instead of like the actions that are,
mhm,
like I'm pissed off because you're not doing this thing. We don't go there. We're like, look, our core values are here, here, here. Seems like we're not aligning on these things. And so many times the employee is like, you know what, you're right. Like I'm just not in a space right now to do the things for whatever reason. And oftentimes it's been like, you know what, when you're ready, we really like you as a person and you're welcome to come back. But for now,
right,
I think it's time to part ways. And it
yeah,
just becomes an easier conversation than like, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, disciplinary action, that kind of thing, which can be much harsher and make a rift in the breakup instead
yeah.
of an amicable.
I just leave coach a couple of clients. It's just like I would just straight up ask them,
Yeah.
"Are you on board with this? Do you still want to be? I mean, is this something? I mean, they've done all this stuff, and it's just like it might just be straight up ask them, "Can I
Mhm.
count on you to do this?
Yeah.
This is why it's important. This is what's not getting done. We've had this conversation. Can I count on you to do this or not?"
Yeah.
Sometimes there's nothing wrong with just straight up asking that way. I just had a call before the roundup, where I was working with a client, coaching a client through, had a teacher that they teach vinyasa, and the owner's been working really hard to create his class experience and create the arc the way he wants it, and so that there's a general, the product is defined, and he has this one teacher that is just younger guy. Now granted, the guy's class is popular. He teaches it once a week, and he teaches other classes, but this one vinyasa class. but he's using all kinds of different music, and he's doing all these, like, I'm not going to say weird, but interesting sequences, and doing all this stuff that is really not the way the owner wants the vinyasa class to be taught. And it is, the class does attract a lot of people. However, it's not what he wants his studio to be, because none of the other teachers teach that way.
Mm.
So we talked about what to do on that. He got really clear on it, and then he sat down and had the conversation with him. And I was just hearing from him. He said, yeah, because I was coming from such a clear place, he started to get really agitated and really defensive. And like my class, people like my class. And he said, the owner said, I was just very much able to be grounded, and I felt really calm. And at one point I said, I sense you're getting agitated about this. We're just having a conversation here.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right. And then at the end of the day, this particular owner who does not want music in his classes, that is his choice.
Hmm.
None of the other classes have music. He started out as a Bikram, and, we don't use Bikram, blah, blah, blah. He's just like, he doesn't want music. And so then finally the teacher was like, well, then I guess I was so proud of him, because he said to the guy, he said, can you get on board with how we teach vinyasa? And he said, no, I don't want to teach that way. He said, I'm happy to teach the other classes, which is interesting because the other classes are set sequences. So interesting. And that was fine, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like, and I was so proud of him because, and he said, I was grounded. I felt I knew what I wanted, and I just explained it to him calmly. And he was absolutely fine when the dude was like, no, I don't want to teach that way. I'm going to give that class up. So he wasn't approaching, and I think sometimes in these difficult conversations, they're always difficult, it seems, with humans, is not coming at it from that place as opposed to the scarcity, the fear. We've seen that
Right.
a ton, where owners are afraid to make a change because they're afraid their teachers are going to quit, or they're afraid this is going to happen. And I mean, it is never, ever a good idea to run your business from a position of fear. You just can't. It becomes
Yeah.
untenable.
Yeah. Fear, scarcity. Yeah. Those are it creeps in. And I
It
think
does.
then it sways you, and then you don't have the clarity of thought anymore, the vision of what you want your space to be like. And so yeah, I'm really super proud of that owner as
Yeah.
well, for just standing like, this is the vision I have. I want it to be like this, at the end of the day, the pressure is on the owner. Like, the
Right.
bills are coming to the owner. So, whether this employee or teacher in this case is on board or not, like, okay, great. If you're not on board, we'll keep moving along. This is
We'll
my
keep moving on.
vision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
It's
I'd
no shade.
rather know than you
Yes.
sabotage, like, my vision.
Yeah.
So,
100%. I mean, I think that actually that had came up recently too. And it's like, and I'm like, look, it's better that they came and said, no, I don't want to do that, because it's rather than them being there, that there's nothing worse than not necessarily even disgruntled. I mean, there's obviously, you can recognize disgruntled people, but the passive aggressive, the cancer that's silently spreading.
mm,
And with cancers, you got to cut it out and get rid of it, because
yes.
it's not going away.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the hard ones, because they're a little more sneaky sometimes, and
Yes.
it's more like a little whisper here from somebody, and you don't see all of the negative energy
Yeah.
that they're bringing, because maybe you don't see them very often, but man,
And
we
that's,
definitely had that experience. And then finally splitting was such a relief.
yeah.
And every
Yeah.
time that we talk to owners who finally make that break, because it can be scary. It might be somebody
Yeah.
that you really care about, or that's been with you a long time, but inevitably it's like the result is always like, thank
Yeah.
goodness that finally happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a client last year where it was, this doesn't happen, this rarely, but it doesn't happen, it rarely happens, and it can happen, is with an instructor where they actually called the police to have him escorted out of the building when he was not, and that was really scary. And at the same time, once he was gone, it was like,
Yeah. Because you don't always know how it's affecting the rest of the team
and that
either.
was it. It was what it came up was that it was unfortunate. It was a male instructor, and it turned out he was verbally abusive to some of the other teachers, and there were teachers that were getting afraid of him. He was kind of volatile, and the owner had no idea, and then just sort of bubbled up, and then that's why this whole thing escalated. But once he left, it was validated because a teacher that had quit called her up and said, well, now that he's gone, if you have room for me, I would love to come back.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's where I want to say, if you're not an owner and you're a teacher and you're listening to this and you have a problem like that and the owner doesn't know, you need to bring it to the owner.
Yeah. I feel like there's this weird, like, I don't want to tattle on
Paddle
somebody
on
or I don't
someone.
want to
Yeah.
be, yeah. But in that case, I don't,
If someone in your business
I just
doesn't feel
want to
safe,
know, right?
yeah,
I want to know that.
yeah,
I need a record of the things that are happening too. So that can lead to like, do you have an incident
report.
report? Do you have a performance improvement plan for your employees? Like whatever it is, like maybe a teacher did pop off on someone. Like we need to have this
A conversation. Yeah,
documented,
yeah.
yeah, in a conversation and like whether, yeah. So those kinds of things are really important to have in your business as well.
Yeah, that goes to your culture, like your core values. I'm sure most studio owners don't want people in their business. Nobody wants somebody to feel unsafe
No,
in the
no,
business,
yeah.
and same thing, similar, another client where they did at a recovery center where they would go, and that was part of their community outreach where they would go and do once a week. And then unfortunately the employee felt the teacher came and like, I don't want to go back there. I felt really unsafe.
Ooh,
And partly because, people in recovery they're struggling with a disease and addiction and things like that. So of course it can get a little bit hairy, right?
mhm.
So then it's like, okay, do we continue to do this? If we continue to do this, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And it came up with, they reached out, that the treatment center really wanted them to do it. And they agreed that they would always have a staff member there with the teacher, so that the
Yes.
teacher didn't have to worry about if some was somebody in the class started to struggle or whatever, there was a professional who knew how to deal with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, wow, we really,
How
I don't know
did
where
we
to go
get
with
here?
but what, it's life, it's people,
Yeah,
these are the things that when you own a business, that you deal with. Nobody likes to think about them, but they can happen.
they really can. Yeah. Seen it a lot,
Yeah.
So
And if you have the systems and things in place to support you, it makes it a lot easier when things go south.
100%.
100%. Yeah. So, I don't know. I think maybe that's the wrap, because I know you've got a call in about 15 minutes. I got to get
Yeah.
ready for my workshop on KPIs in
Ooh,
45
yes.
minutes. So yeah, if you're listening to this and haven't joined the Artha community yet, we have an amazing community of fitness, health, and wellness entrepreneurs where you can network with your peers and get access to all our resources and things like that. We'll make sure we always post how you can join the community and start networking and finding out what's going on with health and wellness.
Sounds good. Well, that's a wrap on this week's Weekly Roundup. Tune in every Friday and make sure you subscribe and Sue, subscribe to the show. Sorry, on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening from. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.